Hello, it's Amber, your superhero stylist. It's March 4th, and today I'm going to quickly talk about what I've been reading so far, which is the Sandman volumes. I have, 1 through 10. I've been promising that eventually I would get to them, and so I finally did. I finally finished volume 2, and since somebody asked a special request about that specific volume, I figured I would talk to you about it. I actually preferred volume 2 over volume 1. You can take a look at it here. And part of that is because there's more Morpheus in it. I mean, let's face it, it's called the Sandman. I wanted more, and I wasn't getting that in volume 1. There's also more time spent on other members of the Endless, the other siblings. Death is, she comes and goes, and she's obviously a very popular character. But there's more about Desire and the Corinthian in here, and so we get to find out who they are and what they do. The Corinthian's, I guess, not technically an Endless, but he's not human either. So Desire is a really cool facet of this volume. The heart of the story is about Rose, who is a young woman that is out trying to reconnect with her family. And it's really cool that Gaiman takes characters that are basically just mentioned someplace and he revisits them. So in this case, Rose finds her grandmother named Unity, who is in England, and she actually was a part of the first volume. She was a person who was trapped in sleep for most of her life. So they're very special. Unity and Rose have a connection to the dreaming world. We also just discover, in this volume that the dreaming is the same as heaven or the afterlife, whatever you want to call it. So that really could stir up a whole lot of things to talk about, but I'm not going to get into it. So Rose is searching for her brother while the mom stays with the grandmother. And she comes back to the States and she's searching for Jed, who is stuck in a most tragic situation of the worst kind of foster care you could possibly imagine. So in order to really just survive, Jed escapes to the dreaming. He spends as much time as he can dreaming about, flying, and that there's this wonderful man called the Sandman who protects him. And it turns out that it's a false Sandman, though, so that's a whole nother track of story about who that person was. And while Rose is searching for this brother, she has to stay at this sort of, not really a halfway house, but it's this giant Victorian house broken into apartments, kind of like Coraline. And it's called the Doll's House. Dolly is this drag queen who owns the house. And so there's a ton of really interesting characters that live at the Doll's House. And then Rose's journey takes her to a hotel where there is a serial killer convention. Okay, so during that time, that's where we get, more about the Corinthian, who actually is the embodiment of nightmares. He's supposed to rule over nightmares. And he sort of violates the rules of the dreaming, and he spends way too much time in the real world and bringing real evil to humans. And so Morpheus has to put a stop to him. And then, so the way that this is all handled, though, the serial killer convention, is actually pretty cool. Gaiman handles it, I believe, in a much better way than other popular writers. And if I name who they are, then I'll get a bunch of, harsh comments about, why don't I like them? Anyway, everybody's got their own taste, and I think Gaiman handles this type of violence in a better, more tolerable, and more tasteful way while still making the story entertaining. He makes all of the characters actually very interesting. The Corinthian, for example. I mean, he's handsome, he's charming, he's all of the things that you see in, the new serial killers. I mean, they lure their prey in some fashion. And then there are serial killers that are, you look at them and you can't figure out why somebody would be attracted to them in the first place, and it's because, wow, they must be really fun, and look, he's going to give me treats and candy, and, that kind of psycho. So I think Gaiman handles it in a much better way. So I definitely recommend picking them up if you haven't, if or if you've only gotten certain parts of it, like the new Sandman series that was just out, the Dream Hunters. It's a completely different experience, and that's primarily because of the advances that we have in artwork. The printing, the color schemes, the things that you can do today in comics is far different than what you get from these older issues. So I really loved the Dream Hunters. I thought the artwork was much better in that new series. But, the Doll's House is sort of, represents its time, the zeitgeist of the time. So I recommend it. Give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, just leave them. Don't forget to subscribe before you log out. Thanks for joining me today.